Here. Patty, good afternoon. How are you?
I am great, Pino. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I've been following you. I've been watching BNN for years, and it's so nice to finally connect with you. So
Thank you.
thanks for doing this. Patty, so I want to talk to you about, we'll talk about a couple things. We'll talk about the labor market, things you're seeing and what's hot and what's not. And we'll talk about some other things related to the labor market and
Sure.
unemployment and such. But before we get into it, just for those of you, you're pretty popular in Toronto. Most people, it's safe to say, probably know you. But if anyone's watching this video right now and they don't know who you are, can you just give us a brief synopsis of who you are and what you do?
Okay. Pattie Lovett-Reid. I'm supposedly retired, but I'm
Yeah.
not really. I'm currently the chief financial commentator for Home Equity Bank. I was the chief financial commentator for about 11 years on CTV News. And prior to that, I was a senior vice president at TD Waterhouse.
Awesome, perfect. You shared a great story on LinkedIn. I just want to start with that because I think our audience is going to really appreciate it. You talked about how you worked at TD, and I think if I'm not mistaken, your education was holding you back from climbing up that ladder, and you did something to get over that. Can you share that with us quickly?
Well, to be honest with you, it was actually Bank of Montreal.
Okay.
And I started literally 2 days after graduating from high school. And I'm pretty sure at the time I had grade 9 math, and that was it. But somehow I
Wow.
managed to get through.
Yeah.
And I was in a teller position, and I progressed to the highest level at the clerical rank. At the time, it was a level 6. And I was very fearful that I couldn't get into management, yet I had a strong desire to do that. And so then you would go into the next sort of category. I actually ran into a senior executive at TD, and I literally went up and said, I'd like a job in management and to go through the management training program. I think he thought it was rather bold, Pino, and to be
Yeah.
honest with you, it was.
Yeah.
But it worked, and I did
Yeah.
get into the management training program and
Yeah.
progressed through various ranks over a 33-year career.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, years later, when I reflect on it, um, it was not BMO that was holding me back. It was me holding me back.
Oh,
And my husband actually said something very powerful to me. He said, Patty, get off your own coattails. The only person holding you back is you.
right.
No one's going to care if you have a degree or not.
Yeah.
To this day, do I regret not having a degree?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I needed to get out of my own way. And I
Yeah.
think that applies to people in this market as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes the only person holding you back from being bold and getting out
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, we talked about that before we jumped on this call, being bold and taking those chances. And a lot of the advice I share with candidates that are looking for work right now is be bold, be visible, get out there, take some chances. I think the conventional way of sitting at your desk and sending your resume out to a whole bunch of employers waiting for someone to call you, that those days may be behind us now. It's just I think you have to be creative and you got to do something and think outside the box and take those chances, right? You want to get noticed,
Yeah, I
right?
agree with that.
Right.
I also will throw it out there that I think networking is absolutely critical. And you
Yeah,
know, I can use
yeah,
myself as an example. I
sure.
was the absolute worst networker
Ah,
in the corporate environment. No
okay.
one knew really who I was, what I was doing. Every once in a while, somebody say, what exactly is she doing? And how is she aligning to the strategic initiatives of our organization to move it forward? We see her
Yes,
doing a lot of things out there. But
right.
what I did do is I was ferocious in networking within the media and
Yeah,
developed great relationships. And so when an opportunity presented itself to me, without a journalism background, without a background in finance, um, I was able to move forward because I had a lot of people within
yeah,
the media industry
yeah.
that believed in me.
Okay, so hustle and grit,
Yeah, a little
right?
bit of grit, a lot of grit, actually.
Yeah,
Actually, a lot of hustle. So thank you. I've never
yeah,
really summarized it that way.
yeah. A lot of hustle, keeping your front. I believe that too. I believe it's gonna come down to your network and those relationships you build along the way that will help open up those doors. Ultimately, it's gonna come down to you and the work you do, but those
Yeah.
networks will open up those doors for you. And what you do with that is up to you. But I can't stress enough. Your network is really gonna be a big part of your job search, right? So thanks for sharing that with us.
Thanks.
Patty, I have so many questions I want to pick your brain on labor market or the economy in general. Are we in a formal recession right now? Your thoughts on that?
No, I don't think we're in a recession, and
Okay.
I think actually the first quarter is going to turn the corner.
Yeah.
But you know what, Pino, doesn't matter if we have marginal growth to the upside or a recession.
Yeah.
We've been pretty much flatlined in
Yeah.
Canada for the last year. It
Yeah.
has not been great. When I look at the labor market, you know, I think we started out strong. We've had a few months where we've seen some great job gains,
Yeah.
but overall, there's no question it's a bit of a lagging indicator and it's
Yeah.
starting to cool. We're
Yeah.
starting to see unemployment tick higher. Here's
Yeah.
where I worry. I worry about youth.
Yeah.
Finding that first job when they've
Yeah.
graduated is so discouraging.
Yeah.
You know, some are taking on 2 or 3 part-time temporary positions, which, by
Yeah.
the way, I do applaud.
Yeah.
But I do think that you know, it's a tough market right now.
It's
You're the expert here. What do you see?
I think I was talking to someone yesterday on a call yesterday. We are oversaturated right now. There's so many people right now fighting for these jobs, and there's just the jobs are just not what we're where we were 2 years ago. The
Yeah,
jobs just aren't there anymore. So they will come back, but right
correct.
now, just there's so many people writing right now fighting for these limited jobs.
So
And
can I just add to that?
yeah,
I absolutely agree that there are very few, but when I was a hiring manager and
yeah,
I ran a call center, for example, and we
yeah,
had numerous employees,
yeah,
um, good people cannot find work. And so therefore, I think you have to be unafraid to stand out from the crowd. But I think you also have to say to yourself, okay, what can I do to get over this hump? Because
yeah,
I'm still going to look at your resume and
yeah,
say, did you build a business plan to figure
yeah,
out how to find a job? Have you been volunteering?
yeah,
Did you take on temporary work? There
yeah,
are a lot of things that you can do um, that says to me that you're industrious,
yeah.
and that can make a huge difference.
I always preach this. I always say to the candidates that I work with, write down a plan. I think when you write down a plan, you have a clear
Mm,
vision of what you want and how you're going to get there. We know that when you write things down, you're more likely to hit your goals and your targets. So I say to the candidates I'm working with, like, write down your goals, write down what is it that you want and work towards that, right? I think
yeah,
people right now, because they're so desperate to find work because of all these pressures, bills are coming in, mortgages need to get renewed this year. They're
yeah,
spraying their resume out to jobs they're not qualified for and maybe not necessarily even they want,
yeah.
right? Because
I
they got to
kind of
get to
believe it's like the flywheel concept that was sort of introduced a lot, you know, by Jim Collins, built to last, good to great. You know, if
yeah,
you when I built something, when I retired, I
yeah,
decided that I'm not really going to retire, but I
yeah,
want to build a portfolio of things.
yeah.
And so I consider myself the nucleus in the middle of a bicycle wheel,
Okay,
and each spoke represented an element of how I was going to build what I was going to do in this next chapter of my life.
right,
I would reach out to employers. I would identify who I wanted to work with. I would use social media, and the list goes on. But what happens here, the beauty of it, Pino, is that each spoke allows you to gain more and more momentum,
yes,
and you start to move forward.
yeah,
And you're surprised almost when um, inadvertently our relationship happened because I hadn't been on LinkedIn.
yeah,
And somehow I hit a button that said open for hire.
yeah,
I don't even know how I did it, but I figured
yeah,
it out now.
yeah,
And you reached out and
yeah,
we chatted.
yeah.
And here
That's
we
how
are
this, then
today.
here we are, right? So it's just reaching out and like we talked about, just being bold and taking
Mhm.
initiatives, right? And
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
I mean, I just think it's so, but I do think it's a tough market, and I don't
yeah,
want to sound like Pollyanna here.
yeah,
It's tough. I think people need to care for themselves,
yeah,
stay connected.
yeah,
I mean, this is a great opportunity to learn new skills. I think you
yeah,
and I chatted the very first time we did. My
yeah.
focus is on industries that are sunrise industries, not sunsets. And I
Okay.
tend to focus on where are we seeing momentum, where
Okay.
are we going, and
Yeah.
how can I equip myself with the new skills to align to that?
Great tips. Okay. Patty, what industries right now? So the economy right now is let's say it's lukewarm. It's not hot, it's not cold. It's kind of somewhere in between. Fair to say? Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say that's
Yeah.
pretty fair. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's,
Okay.
eh, yeah,
Are
it's
there
definitely cooled. Go ahead.
are there industries you feel right now that, hey, despite despite things where they are right now, let's say technology is still doing well, manufacturing still
Yeah.
plugging away. What industries can you share with us? Maybe you are doing well
Well,
or not so well.
when I look at where we've seen some strength, we've seen it in professional areas, scientific areas, technical areas, industry. There's no question that there are many that say in the service manufacturing area that they want to hire, they're willing to train, but not necessarily finding the right candidate for it.
Yeah,
And something I'd like to say is that, if you're just starting out in your career
yeah,
and you can't find maybe what you trained for or
yeah,
what you hoped you'd be doing, very few people, I don't know about you, that actually retire from where
yeah,
they started.
yeah.
And
Very true.
all of this, it's building for you.
Yeah,
And I just think that it can add a lot.
yeah.
But realize that it's not the end game there.
Yes, agreed. I don't suppose you have a crystal ball, do you? Can you tell us where we're going to be 12 years from now from an economic
Well,
standpoint? Are
I'll
we going
bet
to be
12 years or 12 months.
12 months? Let's just
Okay,
do
good.
let's do 12 months. Are we do you think the federal government will continue to drop the lower interest rate? Do you think we'll be in a better place? Do you think that'll thoughts on that?
You know, here's the thing, Pino. I have been through so many economic downturns.
Yeah,
And when an economy gets overheated, we do need to have this pullback
yeah,
and recalibrating, rebalancing. And then what happens is we start to move forward. Yes, we've had the first bank rate cut from the Bank of Canada. Most of the economic reports that I've read have suggested that there will be two more this year for a total of 75 basis points,
okay.
maybe every other quarter or every other meeting, because they're not necessarily quarterly.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very data dependent. The fear is that, you've cut rates. Will it ignite the housing market? Will inflation take off? And I think there was a lot of deliberation and debate whether they even cut when they did in June
Hmm.
and not wait till July. But the decision was to cut, and that's what they've done. Does
Hmm.
25 basis points make all that much difference?
Not
No.
much. No.
No, but
No.
what it does is it starts to change your psyche and you
Right.
start to change some behaviors
Yeah.
based on what you think is the anticipation of where we're going. But I do think the first quarter will be stronger, and I do think 2024 will end on a higher note.
So things you suspect third or fourth quarter will pick up.
Yeah, well, I think they will, but the fact that the Bank of Canada is cutting rates
Yeah.
suggests that we are not in a, growth period, or they
Yeah.
would have left rates where they are. But by
Yeah.
cutting rates, you start to stimulate some growth, and that can have a knock-on effect.
Or are they dropping rates to win probably points in the election next year? Could that possibly be a reason why they're cutting it
You
or
know
no?
what? I'm not a skeptic. I'd like to
Yeah.
keep the two separate,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna say it's economically driven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Patty, your thoughts on, I was talking, I got into an interesting debate yesterday with someone, hybrid. Do you feel, is it here to stay? Yeah, is it behind it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do think that it's probably here to stay. I
Okay.
think many have found efficiencies in it. I
Yeah.
think the labor force has embraced it.
Yeah.
I think it's different for each company,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
again, you're the expert. Do you?
Yeah. So it's an interesting debate. I'm seeing both. So there are organizations that I partner with that are calling their employees back.
Mhm.
And then there's some that are still sticking with that 2 to 3 days from home. So I'm seeing
Yeah.
a wide variety of different models for different organizations. But I
Yeah.
think to attract and retain talent, you're going to have to offer that hybrid. You're going to have
Yeah.
to, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
I also think that an area it's not so much whether someone comes into the office for me. If I really think about it, I look at our productivity,
yes,
how we continue to see things decreasing, and we're challenged that way. So if you can look for ways to get an engaged workforce
yeah,
that increases productivity, that embraces technology. One of the things that we were talking about, is AI going to go away? Absolutely not. It is
yeah,
here to stay.
yeah,
And that I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think it's going to enhance
yeah,
and improve our productivity, which
Yeah.
then has a knock-on effect, of course, and helps our standard of living.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. AI's a big, a lot of people are like so hesitant or afraid of it. I think people need to embrace AI, right?
Right, right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Well, I'm in that camp for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, you talk to a lot of executives, senior leaders. For our audience, because people that are watching this are in the labor market, is there one skill do you feel that like potential employers or employers really look for? Is it adaptability? Is it communication skills? What's your thoughts on that, Patty? Like, what do employers want? Like, what's
Wow, that is a great, great question. I'm not sure I'm not sure I could pinpoint
okay,
one particular
okay,
skill.
yeah.
Um,
I know it's a wide variety of different things they look
yeah,
for, right?
because I do think obviously competency matters,
Yes,
skill set,
yeah,
but it's also the ability to work with teams. And I think from an organization,
yeah,
again, I go back to Jim Collins because I really subscribe to this thought. It's about getting the right people in the right jobs
yeah.
to help move the organization forward. And so as an employer, and when I was hiring, I wasn't necessarily ever going to look for a carbon copy of me.
Yeah.
I wanted different skill sets. But here's what I did care about, and it's shocking to me how few people do this. After an interview, they
Yeah.
don't tell you they want the job. They don't tell you that no one will work harder for you than I will. I'm
Hmm.
the candidate that you want. And
Ah.
that is a game changer for me because that's the last thought I have when someone left my office.
Yeah.
So often, like I'd say, do you have any questions? Is there any last
Yeah.
thought you'd like?
Yeah.
And so that would be my tip of the day.
Okay. So if I was interviewing with you and said, Patty, it's great meeting you. Listen, I really enjoy meeting with you, and I really want to be part of your team. I can't wait to start with you. So that would resonate with you. That would make you
It
kind of,
would, because
yeah,
I want someone who wants to be here,
who wants to
who
be
wants
there.
to help grow the business, who wants to do the very best they can. And I
Yeah.
get it. Not everybody's going to have all the skill set, and
Yeah.
forget about ever finding the candidate that's
Yeah.
100% has everything that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But knowing the job and knowing the alignment, you're going to get a
Yeah.
great candidate.
Yes. Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
to
That's a
sell.
good.
I do think you need to sell yourself. I understanding the
Yeah.
organization, understanding the dynamics,
Yeah.
there are just basics that you go back to.
Yeah. And one example that I share with people when you talk about selling yourself, providing metrics and analytics, KPIs, that really separates you from the crowd, right? So you
Huh?
do want to sell yourself, but when you add those metrics and analytics, and I think not enough people are doing it, KPIs and metrics will separate you from everyone else. So,
There
right?
you
So,
go.
Patty, have you ever heard of Dr. Robert Cialdini by chance?
No, I haven't.
Ah, American
No.
psychologist. You should look him up. Tons of
I don't
content
even think
on
I can spell it. No.
he's great. A friend of mine introduced me to him, and he's an American psychologist, and he talks about the power of influence. He wrote a very popular book. You probably heard of it. It's called Persuasion. You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
No,
so
I've heard the book, but I can honestly say I have not read it.
I listened to a lot of his content online, and he talks
Yeah.
about how you things subtle things you can do to influence someone's like a hiring manager to hire you. So if anyone's watching this, right, check out Robert Cialdini because I think he's great. He actually wrote this book here.
Yes. Oh, you know what?
He's
Yes.
great.
Okay.
He's
So
great.
one of my guiding principles this year
Yeah.
has been the power of yes. Clearly, I didn't come up with it,
Yeah.
but I've
Yeah.
decided to adopt it.
Yeah.
And you were part of that when we first started. So
Yeah.
mine was yes to new opportunities,
Yeah.
yes to new challenges, yes to new experiences. And sometimes you need to step back to move forward.
Yeah.
And I have had opportunities come my way. And social media, I am on Instagram,
Yeah.
I am on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
not as well as you yet, but I
Yeah.
am working on it. And I have a YouTube channel that
Ah.
I launched called Take Charge Now with Pattie Lovett-Reid. How catchy. But the point is,
Yeah.
you've got to put yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things resonate, some things don't. And then you change. It's
Yeah.
called by some, and I didn't coin this either, but I use it, a purposeful pivot.
Okay.
Isn't that good? I wish I
Love it.
came up with it. Yeah, I was like you're going along and you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you got, if it's not working, change
Yeah,
it up.
yeah,
Have a purposeful pivot.
yeah, I agree. So I think we've been conditioned to sit at when we talk about people looking for work, we're conditioned to sit at the desk and send resumes out to all these open positions. And
Yeah.
I think we need to flip that upside down and kind of reevaluate that and look at your job search differently. And I think the general sense of this call is just being bold, take some chances, get out there, do something different,
Yeah.
right? If it's
Yeah.
something's not working,
And you know what? The very, very fact that you said something to me before we came on the call
yeah,
was not everybody's going to like you.
yes,
And that's true. Not,
yeah,
trust me, I get the emails. Some people do, and I would say the
yeah,
vast majority are absolutely delightful. But
yeah,
there are others that will say, you're too extra, you're too out there, you're too this, you're too that.
yeah,
And sometimes I think it is important to listen to feedback.
yeah,
And other times I think it's okay, I'm never going to win you over.
yeah,
So I am going to concentrate on the other people who have
yeah.
embraced the same sort of thinking as I have.
Yeah. So that's how you deal with that criticism. Just don't even
Yeah.
focus on, yeah,
But can I just tell you, I once gave a presentation when I was launching one of my books, and a Toronto Star editor was in the writer
yeah,
was in the audience. The feedback on my presentation was 99%, I would say, great.
yeah,
But the one feedback form that said, if I came here to see Pattie Lovett-Reid read her presentation, I wouldn't have bothered. Now, I didn't think I was reading it. I thought I knew it. And
yeah,
because I had that crutch, I had this little book in front of me,
yeah,
down, never again, never. I took that feedback and
yeah,
thought, that perception is real. I am never going to have notes again. And I
yeah,
never did. So sometimes I think it's really savvy to say, you know what, maybe
yeah,
everybody else thought it was okay, but
yeah,
this was important to listen to.
yeah. There's a quote, if I'm not saying, I've never failed, I've only learned, right? Something along those lines. I'm not saying if it's saying it correctly, but
No,
you, so
I have listen, I fail all the time. I
yeah,
fall down, I get knocked down all the time.
yeah,
As mom says, it's about how you get back up off the
that's
mat.
right. Yeah.
And everybody says it, but she says it. And you want to know the other thing she says to me, which I love? Pat, and mom is 91.
Wow. God
Patty, if
bless.
I say I'm bored, which I never do because I'm just not, but I did growing up.
Yeah.
Only the boring are bored.
Yeah. It's a good
Yep.
point.
It's a famous mom expression to me.
Yeah. What motivates you? What inspires you to keep doing what you're doing, Patty? You
Oh,
seem
thanks
so
for
passionate
asking.
and so involved in what you're doing.
You know what? I have a genuine passion to want to help people
Yeah.
with their finances,
Yeah.
or just, I don't want to be part of a demographic that feels like they've been forgotten or overlooked or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so it excites me every day to get up and try to do something. I like having a little more balance in my life. We do have 7 grandchildren.
Wow.
We do love to travel,
Yeah.
but I still want to do what I've always done and follow the markets and talk about personal finance
Yeah.
and share that with people. So I
Yeah.
guess, you know, I'm not a finance person,
Yeah.
which is very interesting that I talk about money,
Yeah.
and like I'm not an economist.
Yeah.
So, but what I try to do is take what's out there and say, okay, as an everyday person, because I'm that everyday person, what
Yeah.
does it mean to you? So
Yeah.
I think the important thing for someone looking for a job,
Yeah.
um, I joke, who would want me as the chief financial commentator on one of Canada's major networks without a financial background?
Right.
Somebody
Yeah.
who said, I like what you're doing because it's in a passion.
Yeah.
And so find a niche for yourself that says, hey, I can do this.
That's great advice for job seekers. That's great advice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Good. Any other advice, Patty, for job seekers? Give us leave us off with some hope, or hopefully you can give us some ray of hope that things will turn around and things will get better and we'll get back to some sort of
Oh, yeah,
normalcy.
things will absolutely get better.
Okay.
Sometimes it takes time,
Yeah.
and we're seeing that. It definitely takes time. I also think, seek the help of a professional.
Yeah.
And you can ask me to say this,
Yeah.
but you're a great resource. I mean, you reached out to me
Yeah.
just to chat about what I've seen and done. If I'm
Yeah.
looking for a job, and I
Yeah.
did, and how to go about doing so, like
Yeah.
not to get a job, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, I would reach out to you. And
Yeah.
I think people need to know
Yeah.
that when there's genuine interest, when someone genuinely says, can I
Yeah.
get 10 minutes of your time?
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. I don't have all
Yeah.
the answers, that's for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
but I can share with you what I know.
But you know, I'm convinced that people generally want to help each other. I truly believe that. I
Yeah,
believe that if you ask someone for help, I believe people generally want to help and provide advice and guidance to people, right? Like I've in my business, there's a lot of people that I lean towards or ask questions when I'm stuck with something. I know there's a list of people that I can reach out to, and they're more than willing to help, right? So I
my
think it's good
goodness.
to have that support staff, right?
Yeah,
Right,
it,
right,
back to networking.
right. That's
Yeah.
that's I think the theme of this is just networking and just being bold and
And giving
taking.
back as well. Like
Yes,
networking is not one way. We've heard this. Everybody talks about networking.
yeah,
But I have lifelong friends that as I
yeah,
was moving up the ranks, I'll give you an example.
yeah,
Satish Rai, he was once the chief investment officer at TD.
yeah,
And we're going to India with his family in January. So this is
yeah,
from decades ago.
yeah. See
You
that?
know, you build these relationships and
Yeah.
you have to put in what you hope to get out as well.
Yeah. Well, it's like a garden, right? When you plant the garden in the spring, you feed it, you give it water, and you get it, and then you nourish that garden, right? And then
Yeah.
you reap the rewards of your hard work, right? Something similar, I guess. I don't.
I know, I think that's a great way to end it. That was
Yeah,
good. I'm gonna
yeah,
leave the
yeah.
last word to you.
Yes. No, but I just, Patty, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Maybe we'll jump on another call, and your insight is greatly appreciated. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We'll do this again.